I was born in New Delhi, India. My parents were government physicians and we lived in the government housing. From an early age, there was a lot of emphasis on schooling and homework. Growing up in a modest middle class neighborhood, the main extracurricular activity after school was cricket. Although the youngest and smallest among my brother and friends, I was still able to compete with an extra spunk. But my mind very often drifted into an imaginary daydream of flying. I imagined a small home-built plane with my feet paddling a propeller. My small legs were supposed to generate enough power to take off and cruise. My driveway, where we usually hung out, was a runway where my plane was going to have the takeoff roll. I still do not know where the seed of this dream was planted, but my suspicion is that it may have come from the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. The imaginary airport was a far cry from growing up with close supervision of my grandfather. We lived together in the same house. After retiring as a radiologist, he spent a lot of time relaxing and taking care of his collection of chickens. I was very disinterested in the chickens as the place was very smelly and also I was a vegetarian. Finally, at age 7, I was ready for my first flight. Planned in an Indian Airlines Avro to visit my grandparents who lived in the town of Jaipur in the state of Rajasthan. After anticipatory excitement for weeks, the flight ended up as a big disappointment. Flames were shooting from the engine on the takeoff roll, and thus the flight was aborted. The trip was rescheduled by road, and the first flight will have to wait a few more years. This made the desire of making a backyard plane even more strong. Many years went by, and immersing myself in studies with the goal to become a physician was a priority. But somewhere in the back of my mind, flying was the burning passion. At the end of high school, I enrolled in Delhi Gliding Club. This gave me an opportunity to get into the cockpit. After a long bus ride and a 2-mile walk in the sweltering heat, I would get to the gliding school. After a further wait for many hours, I will get a winch tow in the glider, and the average flight was 2 to 3 minutes. The combination of the open cockpit glider used for instructions and the smog-filled, hot and humid weather made it even more challenging. But the feeling of being able to get up in the air and fly like a bird was well worth the effort. With admission to medical school, there was a long hiatus in my cockpit experience, but the passion of flying was always feeding off the window seat views, pretending to be the pilot from the window seats of jumbo jets. In 1984, during my sub-internship, I was fortunate to meet Ann Wood Kelly. She was a true aviation pioneer. Ann was a member of Women's Air Force Service Pilots and the first female vice president of Pan Am. She was kind enough to take me for a ride in her Piper over the North Shore of Boston. That reignited the desire to get my private pilot's license. Finally, after my residency, I had the opportunity to take flying lessons. First the solo in the Cessna 150, and then the private pilot check ride was the high point of my passion. Like most pilots, having my own plane was the next step in the process. A visit to the EA fly-in in Oshkosh, Wisconsin was a fascinating and enlightening experience, but it was also the peak of the aviation bug infection. I saw the Polish PZL Caliber and it was an instant attraction. The dealer brought the demonstration plane to Boston and, as predicted, returned in the airliner. Although an amazing plane with canopy and leading-edge slats, it was limited by the slow speed and limited part supply. I soon graduated to the Grumman Tiger, and then the Socata TB9. I had the opportunity to experience different types of planes, including a jet fighter trainer. I also took the spectacular long cross-country flight to Alaska with my friend Ted Bro. The feeling one experiences while flying a small plane is a feeling like no other. From takeoff to landing, it is an adrenaline rush, a high fueled by spectacular views and the feeling of freedom. The ever-changing landscape feeds the soul with tranquility, rarely experienced in any other way. As Leonardo da Vinci said, "Once you have tasted flight, you will walk the earth with your head turned skywards, for there you have been, and there you long to return." Through all this, the childhood dream of a backyard plane in the driveway was somewhere in the storage neuro hard drive. One evening, while browsing through the ads in Craigslist, I saw a 1959 Piper Apache for sale. It had not flown in many years as the owner had passed away. Luckily, it was located in a town about 30 miles from home. It was in a very disheveled state, and the interior and exterior showing a long time of neglect. A look inside brought a horrible stench, with obvious evidence that it was a shelter and residence for many animal species. But I had a vision which started as a daydream 40 years ago. Much had changed in 40 years, different place, time and circumstances, but the same mind. So started the negotiations to move the Apache from its resting place to the new home. I discussed the project with my friend and pilot Fred Boothman, who suggested taking a layover at his power wash business and doing some cleaning. Well, after 3 to 4 aggressive treatments and taking out the interior, the plane was ready for the journey home. John Walker loaded the plane on the flatbed truck and started the trip to Plymouth. The journey was marked by curious onlookers fascinated by the plane on the flatbed, probably wondering if it had a bad landing. Soon we arrived in Plymouth and the slow crawl down the potholed George Street. The children on the street were amazed with startled and curious eyes. I joked with them that I had a bad landing and the wings are resting on the tree. The nose was repainted white and the exterior was now presentable. After a stormy night, I realized that there was a pool of water in the plane, so Alan helped me seal the wing openings, and a boat cover was used as a canopy cover to prevent additional water seepage. I reinstalled the original seats and covered them. Then I started working on the panel. The antique instruments and wiring had to be removed. This was a much more difficult task than I had imagined. I planned to recreate a glass panel flight simulator, so 2 flat screen monitors were purchased from the recycling center and my old TV panel was placed in the middle. From Craigslist, I acquired the triple screen adapter, rudder pedals, flight yoke, and the joystick. Because of my passion for stick planes and some of the new planes I wanted to use, I learned the joystick was very important. I also learned online how to link the Microsoft Flight Simulator, Moving Map, and the Approach Plate software. It took a while to make it work smoothly. It was great to see the kids get in the plane and enjoy the experience, but the real test came when Tony, my flight instructor, and now a pilot with Delta Airlines, visited with his wife Karen and their 4-year-old daughter Tia. Tony was very impressed with it, but it was great to see Karen and Tia in the plane. Tia brought back the living dream of backyard plane of 45 years ago, so the Dreamflyer is a dream no more.